Ryan stepped cautiously onto the alien training ground, his boots crunching softly on the uneven stone floor. The sun was harsh in the sky, reflecting off the metallic structures surrounding the arena, casting sharp shadows. Around him, the air was filled with the low murmur of the tribe members, their voices blending into a strange, rhythmic hum. He could feel the tension before he even saw her. Kalira stood at the center, her posture proud, her muscles tense, and her eyes fixed directly on him. She was small for a warrior, but her presence was enormous, like a coiled spring ready to release energy at any moment. Her clan, a group of elite alien warriors, watched silently, waiting to see how this human would respond. Ryan knew this challenge was not just a test of strength. The tribe had its ways, its traditions, and he was an outsider. Humans were often considered weak, fragile, incapable of holding the sacred weapons that the tribe honored. Every eye in the arena seemed to say the same thing. He will fail. He adjusted the strap of his pack, trying to hide the nerves shaking his hands. This was not just a test of muscle. It was a test of respect, of tradition, of survival in their eyes. Kalira's lips curved into a faint, almost mocking smile, sensing his hesitation. She lifted the mace from the stone pedestal with ease, its weight obvious even to Ryan from a distance. The weapon was massive, forged from an alien metal he had never seen before, dark with veins of iridescent energy running through it. Even the most skilled adult male warriors of her tribe struggled to hold it for more than a few seconds. She rotated it slowly, showing its intricate carvings, the sharp edges gleaming in the sun. The crowd leaned in, curiosity and amusement mixing in their expressions. They whispered among themselves, clearly expecting Ryan to falter. Kalira's challenge was clear. Hold this weapon and prove you are worthy, or fail and leave the ground with your pride in ruins. Ryan took a deep breath. The weight of expectation pressed down on him, heavier than the mace itself. He moved closer, his eyes locked on Kalira. She extended her arm, the mace hovering in her hand. For a moment, it seemed as though time slowed. He could hear his own heartbeat, loud and unsteady, echoing in his ears. The whispers of the crowd faded into silence in his mind, leaving only the question that Kalira posed with her stare. Could this human endure what no other outsider had ever managed? He grasped the mace with both hands, feeling its energy hum through his fingers. The moment his hands touched the cold metal, his muscles tensed. He could feel every ounce of its weight pressing down on him, every curve of the grip demanding balance and strength. Kalira's eyes narrowed, a flash of doubt crossing her face as she realized he wasn't dropping it immediately. Around them, the tribe members shifted, their expressions a mix of surprise and anticipation. Some whispered to each other, uncertain. They had expected a quick failure, an instant moment of human weakness to be displayed publicly. Ryan's arms shook violently as he adjusted his stance, spreading his feet to gain stability. His mind raced, calculating how to balance the mace without letting it slip. Kalira's smirk grew almost imperceptibly, as though she were enjoying the rare sight of an outsider daring to challenge tradition. He could feel her gaze, probing his determination, testing his limits. Every second felt stretched, each one a small battle of endurance. Sweat rolled down his temples, but he did not let go. His hands ached, his shoulders burned, but he refused to release the weapon. The silence of the arena was broken by the occasional murmur from the elders, their eyes observing closely, measuring his technique, his composure, his resolve. Every movement mattered. A twitch of hesitation, a flicker of fear, and the mace would fall. Ryan shifted his weight slightly, the mace dipping dangerously to one side, and he tightened his grip. He could see Kalira's expression change subtly, from amusement to genuine curiosity, maybe even concern. He wasn't failing. The human was holding the mace. Minutes passed, each second dragging like hours. The crowd's whispering grew louder, then quieter again, unsure of how to react. Some warriors exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the impossible. The human had not dropped the sacred weapon. Ryan felt a surge of adrenaline, fueling his arms and grounding his stance. His breathing steadied, his focus sharpened. He realized it was no longer just about strength. It was about willpower, about refusing to yield under pressure, about standing firm against the expectations of a culture that saw him as inferior. Kalira's eyes widened slightly as she realized the weight of what was happening. Her weapon, a symbol of power and status, had not defeated this outsider. The tradition that had always held unbroken for generations was now in question. Her pride, her certainty, and the collective expectation of her tribe were all challenged by a human who dared to endure. There was a moment of tension, thick and electric, as the silence stretched further. No one breathed. All that could be heard was the faint hum of the mace and the pounding of Ryan's heart. Finally, Ryan stood tall, the mace still firmly in his hands, his arms burning but steady. Kalira's mouth opened slightly, words failing her. The crowd erupted into murmurs, a mixture of shock, respect, and disbelief. The elders exchanged glances, their eyes silently acknowledging that something unprecedented had occurred. Ryan had met the challenge, defied expectation, and shown a courage that the tribe had never seen from a human. Kalira stepped back, lowering her gaze, conflicted emotions playing across her face. She had expected him to fail, to bow under the weight of her challenge, to prove his inferiority. Instead, he had held firm. The ritual had changed before anyone could call it complete, and the rules of tradition would now force a consequence that neither Kalira nor the tribe had anticipated. The heavy mace, once a symbol of dominance and a test for warriors, now represented something entirely new: a human's unyielding strength, courage, and the beginning of a story that would challenge every assumption about outsiders. The arena was alive with tension, every eye fixed on Kalira and Ryan. She could no longer deny the outcome. The challenge had been met. And now, by the unbreakable rules of her tribe, Ryan had claimed a place among them, whether they wanted it or not. The weight of the mace in his hands was matched only by the weight of what was about to come, a tradition neither of them could ignore. The elders of the tribe gathered in a semicircle around Ryan and Kalira, their faces stern but curious. The sun cast long shadows across the training ground, highlighting the intricate patterns carved into the stone floor. Every eye was on Ryan. Every whisper carried weight. The rules of the tribe were ancient, unyielding, and they moved slowly, deliberately, as if the air itself respected their authority. One elder stepped forward, his staff tapping lightly against the ground, drawing attention. He spoke in a low, resonant voice that carried across the arena. The words were precise, formal, and full of meaning. The tradition had been fulfilled. By holding the sacred mace, Ryan had claimed a unique position in the tribe. Kalira's protest faded, but her eyes blazed with defiance. Ryan's heart pounded as he listened. The words were clear, yet their weight was heavy. He had succeeded in the challenge, yes, but he had also walked into the heart of a culture that was not his own. Every human instinct told him to step back, to ask for clarity, to seek some way to negotiate his place. But the tradition left no room for negotiation. By tribe law, Kalira's hand was now symbolically bound to him, and the elders' approval carried more force than any personal desire. The realization struck Ryan suddenly. This was no longer a simple test of strength. This was a test of honor, of courage, and of the human spirit, in a world that had never expected it to endure. Kalira's face shifted through a storm of emotions. Pride, anger, disbelief, and curiosity flickered across her features in rapid succession. She had anticipated humiliation for the outsider, a public spectacle of failure. Instead, she found herself facing a human who refused to bend, who held the sacred weapon without faltering, and who had now challenged centuries of her people's assumptions. The whispering among the tribe members grew, a low hum of speculation and excitement. Ryan could feel the weight of their scrutiny, but he also sensed a strange undercurrent. Respect, thin but undeniable. One of the younger warriors, barely more than a teen, stepped forward hesitantly. He had watched Ryan struggle and triumph, and his eyes were wide with a mixture of admiration and fear. "He is human," the boy whispered to another, voice barely audible, "and yet he held the mace. And no outsider has ever done this." The words rippled through the crowd, reaching Kalira's ears. She clenched her fists, torn between her instincts to reject and her unwilling admiration. Ryan, sensing the shift, kept his gaze steady on her, refusing to show either triumph or fear. The elder continued to explain the implications of the tradition. To hold the mace was more than strength. It was a declaration of capability and honor. For a human, this act was unprecedented. The tradition dictated that the chosen warrior, once proven, was entitled to certain responsibilities and rights. Among them was the expectation that Kalira would acknowledge his role and follow the customary path dictated by their ancestors. For Ryan, this meant navigating a world of customs he barely understood, where one misstep could provoke anger, rejection, or worse. Kalira's protests grew louder, but the elders silenced her with a raised hand. The words were firm, but not cruel. "The law is clear," the elder said. "The challenge has been met. The tradition must be honored." Ryan felt the eyes of the tribe on him, waiting to see how he would respond. His own pulse quickened, a mixture of fear, resolve, and determination. He knew that the path forward would not be simple. Accepting the tradition did not mean surrendering his autonomy, but it did mean he would have to prove himself in ways the tribe valued: protection, skill, courage, and respect for their ways. Kalira stepped back, folding her arms over her chest. She was still fuming, but there was a new wariness in her gaze. She realized that Ryan's endurance had not just passed the challenge, it had also unsettled the hierarchy she had taken for granted. The tribal warriors exchanged glances, some nodding subtly, others whispering among themselves. They were witnessing something extraordinary. A human, an outsider, standing on equal ground by the force of will and courage alone. The tension in the arena was palpable. Ryan felt the weight of expectation, but he also sensed a chance. This was his opportunity to prove more than physical strength. It was his chance to show honor, to earn trust, and to navigate the complex web of traditions that governed this alien world. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. Kalira's eyes met his, and for a moment, the challenge between them shifted. No longer was it just about the mace. It was about understanding, respect, and the beginning of an unexpected bond. The elder detailed the responsibilities that now rested on Ryan's shoulders. He would be required to demonstrate his capability in further trials, to show courage in situations that tested both mind and body, and to uphold the honor of the tribe. These trials would not be easy. Some would be dangerous, and failure could mean serious consequences. The human soldier's mind raced, calculating, planning, and preparing for what lay ahead. Despite the looming difficulties, a spark of confidence grew within him. He had already surpassed the impossible once. Perhaps he could do it again. Kalira's resistance softened incrementally, though pride still colored her expression. She realized that Ryan was not merely surviving the challenge. He was thriving in a way that defied expectations. Each whisper among the tribe members carried a note of surprise, a recognition that their traditions had been confronted by a force they had not anticipated. Ryan's endurance had shifted the perception of the human race in their eyes, from weak outsiders to beings capable of extraordinary resilience. The crowd began to disperse slowly, but the elders remained, speaking quietly among themselves. Ryan and Kalira stood alone in the center of the arena, the mace still in his hands. The sun had begun to dip lower, casting long shadows and bathing the scene in an amber glow. There was still tension, still unspoken challenges, but also a strange sense of possibility. Ryan had passed the first hurdle, but the path forward was filled with uncertainty, intrigue, and danger. Kalira finally spoke, her voice low and measured. "This is not over," she said, though there was a hint of respect hidden behind the words. Ryan nodded slightly, acknowledging her statement without revealing his own thoughts. The elders stepped aside, signaling that the immediate ceremony was concluded. The crowd's murmurs continued, fading gradually as the sun set, leaving Ryan and Kalira alone with the realization that the human had not only held the mace, but had also secured a place within a world that had never welcomed him. The weight of tradition now pressed heavily on both of them, yet there was a silent understanding. The challenge was over, but the consequences had only just begun. Ryan had survived the first test, and by doing so, he had opened a door to a world of trials, loyalties, and expectations that he would need to navigate carefully. Kalira, once certain of her control, now faced a reality she had never anticipated. A human who could endure, a human who could challenge tradition, and a human who, by strength of will alone, could not be ignored. The air was thick with tension as Ryan followed Kalira through the winding corridors of the training grounds. The walls were carved from smooth black stone, etched with symbols and glyphs that seemed to glow faintly under the alien sun. Every step echoed lightly, a reminder that they were being watched even in the supposedly private spaces. Kalira moved with a grace and confidence that Ryan could only admire, but he also sensed the simmering anger in her posture. She had been forced to acknowledge his strength, yet every muscle in her body still screamed resistance. He tried to match her pace, careful not to appear weak, careful not to insult her in this delicate moment. They entered a large chamber at the heart of the training complex. The floor was made of polished stone, worn smooth by countless warriors over countless years. In the center stood a series of challenges, each designed to test agility, speed, strategy, and strength. Kalira's eyes flicked over each one, her expression unreadable. Finally, she stopped in front of a platform that had a series of suspended weights and moving obstacles. The challenge was clear. Ryan was to demonstrate his skill beyond mere strength. Holding the mace had earned him respect, but now he needed to prove his adaptability, his intelligence, and his courage in action. The first weight swung toward him, a massive block attached to chains. Ryan leapt to the side instinctively, feeling the force of air as it passed. Kalira watched intently, her eyes sharp, analyzing his every movement. The chamber's walls echoed with the sounds of shifting metal, clanging chains, and the soft hum of the energy that powered the arena. Ryan could feel his pulse quicken, not from fear, but from the thrill of facing something completely alien. Every obstacle demanded focus, balance, and quick thinking. He moved carefully, yet decisively, anticipating the motions before they fully completed. Kalira's lips curved into a small, approving smile as she saw Ryan dodge the swinging weight with precision. Her tribe rarely witnessed humans in action, and yet here he was, moving with a mixture of human ingenuity and natural reflexes that impressed even the most experienced warriors. She knew that she had underestimated him. Not only had he held the mace, but now he was navigating a challenge designed to break even seasoned fighters. Ryan's determination was infectious, even in her own mind. The initial shock of his endurance gave way to cautious respect, though she refused to let it show fully. Next came the moving platforms, floating slightly above the ground, swaying with a deliberate instability. Ryan assessed the gaps and distances, calculating how to leap safely from one to the next. He could feel the strain in his legs as he balanced, his arms instinctively adjusting for stability. Kalira's eyes narrowed as he landed each jump without hesitation. "Interesting," she murmured under her breath, barely audible, yet Ryan heard it. There was a glimmer of admiration in her tone, a rare acknowledgement from someone who had been trained to see humans as inferior. As he advanced, the final obstacle appeared, a suspended net of ropes interlaced with energy barriers that shifted randomly. One wrong move would send him tumbling or trigger a shock. Ryan hesitated only a fraction of a second, then dove forward, timing each step with careful precision. The energy barriers sparked as he passed, brushing his arm lightly but leaving him unscathed. Kalira's eyes widened. This was a human maneuver she had not expected. Even the elders observing from the upper gallery leaned forward, impressed by the outsider's daring and skill. Ryan landed on the other side, panting slightly but maintaining control. Kalira approached him, her expression conflicted. Pride, frustration, and intrigue all mixed in her gaze. "You adapt quickly," she said, her voice measured but carrying weight. Ryan nodded, not in arrogance, but in acknowledgement of the respect earned in that simple statement. The challenges were more than physical. They tested strategy, intuition, and mental endurance. He had passed not because he was stronger, but because he was human, able to think outside the rigid patterns that her tribe often relied upon. The elder stepped forward, raising a hand. His voice was firm but not unkind. "The human proves more than strength. He proves thought, courage, and skill. The tradition is honored, and yet something new is observed." The words carried a subtle weight. Ryan's performance was reshaping perceptions. The challenge was not only about proving his ability, but about demonstrating that outsiders could surpass expectation if given the chance. The air was electric with anticipation, as everyone in the chamber realized they were witnessing a moment that could alter the way the tribe viewed humans forever. Kalira studied him closely, her body still tense, but her mind racing. She had trained for years in these trials, yet Ryan faced them with a combination of fearlessness and ingenuity that she could not ignore. She began to see that the human's endurance was not merely physical, but also mental. Every hesitation he avoided, every decision he made was calculated yet instinctual. The energy in the chamber shifted, the weight of centuries-old assumptions beginning to feel uncertain. Ryan, sensing the subtle shift, took a moment to steady himself. He knew the trials were not over. Challenges would continue, and danger could appear at any time. Yet he also felt a quiet confidence growing inside him. He had already held the sacred mace, and now navigated this elaborate test with precision and courage. His mind was clear, his reflexes sharp, and his spirit unbroken. Every glance from Kalira, every murmur from the observing tribe, confirmed what he already suspected. He was changing the story they told themselves about humans. Finally, the last obstacle was cleared. Ryan stood on the final platform, chest heaving slightly, sweat rolling down his forehead. Kalira approached him, the glow of respect barely hidden behind her eyes. "You surpass my expectations," she said, her tone low and deliberate. There was no longer mockery, only recognition. The elders nodded in agreement, a subtle acknowledgement that the human had proven not only endurance, but adaptability, courage, and intelligence. Ryan's presence in the tribe center was no longer an anomaly. It was a statement. As the chamber quieted, the weight of the trials shifted from challenge to acceptance. Ryan had passed the physical tests, but more importantly, he had begun earning trust. Kalira's stance softened, her eyes no longer burning with defiance, but flickering with curiosity. She realized that the path ahead would be complicated, full of traditions and expectations she still fully understood. Yet now there was a human walking beside her who could meet them with courage, skill, and thought. The sun dipped lower, casting shadows that stretched across the chamber floor, highlighting the intricate carvings and glowing symbols. Ryan and Kalira stood in silence for a moment, the weight of what had been achieved settling around them. The challenge had been completed, but the story it set in motion was far from over. Each breath, each glance, each step forward now carried the weight of expectation, tradition, and the possibilities of change. Ryan had faced the third part of the trial and emerged not just unbroken, but stronger, wiser, and increasingly respected in a world that had doubted him from the start. The sun was dipping low in the sky, casting long, sharp shadows across the training grounds as Ryan and Kalira prepared for the next phase of the trial. The elders had arranged something far more intricate this time, a test not only of strength and skill, but of trust, strategy, and instinct. The chamber they entered was circular, with a high dome overhead that allowed the last light of the day to filter through in narrow beams. At the center, a platform rose slightly above the ground, covered with shifting panels that moved independently, some sinking, some tilting, each step a new challenge. Suspended above were ropes, pulleys, and mechanical arms that could swing at any moment. This was no longer about holding a weapon or dodging a weight. It was a test of coordination, perception, and courage under unpredictable conditions. Kalira stood at the entrance, watching Ryan carefully. Her expression was a mix of caution and intrigue. She had begun to understand that he was not just a human with raw strength. He had a mind that could assess, adapt, and act quickly in situations that demanded both intellect and instinct. She circled him slowly, her movements silent and fluid, eyes never leaving his form. "This part will be harder than the others," she warned softly, her voice carrying an unspoken challenge. "Every mistake will be costly. Watch carefully, move wisely." Ryan nodded, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of mechanisms and the distant rustle of the tribe members observing from the upper gallery. The first obstacle emerged immediately. Panels beneath his feet began shifting unpredictably, one tilting sharply as he stepped on it. Ryan's reflexes kicked in. He adjusted his balance instinctively, leaning just enough to avoid falling. Kalira's eyes narrowed, impressed at how he maintained control while processing each movement. The panels weren't the only danger. Pulleys above swung unexpectedly, mechanical arms extending and retracting in a pattern that could have struck him if he misjudged his timing. Ryan studied the rhythm carefully, his body moving in precise coordination with his perception of the environment. Every movement had to be exact. Hesitation could be fatal. A series of ropes dangled from the ceiling, forming a web across part of the chamber. Ryan recognized the opportunity. He could use the ropes to traverse sections of the platform quickly, bypassing unstable panels. With a running leap, he caught a rope and swung across a particularly treacherous section. The rope vibrated under his weight, and the energy from the mechanisms above sent a shock of fear through him, but he held steady. Kalira tilted her head, curiosity replacing a hint of irritation. I didn't expect him to adapt so quickly, she thought, her internal challenge now tangled with genuine respect. Perhaps there is more to humans than I assumed. The next challenge was more deceptive. The panels ahead appeared solid, but were in fact pressure sensitive. One false step would trigger a collapse, sending Ryan plummeting several feet. He crouched low, testing each panel with a careful touch, shifting his weight as he moved. Sweat rolled down his temples, yet his mind remained clear. The elders watched silently, exchanging subtle nods. A human capable of reading the floor and predicting movements in this way was extraordinary, and the implications were not lost on them. This was more than a trial. It was a lesson in the power of adaptability, the value of keen observation, and the courage to act decisively. Kalira's gaze shifted from scrutiny to calculation. She realized she could no longer rely on the assumptions she had held for centuries, that humans were weak, clumsy, or unable to handle complex tribal challenges. Ryan's movements were deliberate yet fluid, combining instinct with analysis. He seemed to anticipate the motions of the platform, the timing of the ropes, and the swings of the mechanical arms. Her mind raced, considering how this human might fare in future trials, or even in combat scenarios where strategy mattered as much as strength. A sudden swing of a mechanical arm forced Ryan to adjust mid-stride. He spun, gripping a rope for support, the force pulling him toward the edge of a tilting panel. Kalira's eyes followed every move, a flicker of admiration breaking through her usual stern demeanor. The swing was fast, the margin for error small, yet Ryan calculated precisely, using momentum and leverage to stay balanced. Each action drew gasps from the younger warriors, observing from the side. This was no longer just entertainment or ritual. It was a masterclass in skill, performed by someone entirely unexpected. As Ryan continued, the final section of the chamber revealed itself, a narrow bridge suspended above a pit that appeared bottomless in the fading light. The bridge had moving segments and sections that rocked unpredictably. The mechanical arms above were now swinging more frequently, creating shadows that disoriented perception. Kalira's voice broke the tense silence. Every step must be perfect. Hesitation will fail you. Ryan approached cautiously, each footfall calculated, each movement deliberate. He felt the pressure of the tradition, the expectation of the elders, and the scrutiny of Kalira all at once. Halfway across, a segment tilted violently. Ryan's foot slipped slightly, but he corrected instantly, leaning just enough to maintain balance. Kalira's eyes widened. She had expected him to stumble, but he moved with a mixture of skill and instinct that defied her expectations. The elders whispered among themselves, recognizing the unprecedented display of human adaptability and courage. Each small success amplified the tension in the chamber, drawing attention to every detail of Ryan's movement. Finally, Ryan reached the end of the bridge. His chest heaved from exertion, sweat dampening his clothes, but his eyes remained steady. Kalira approached him slowly, her expression softened, yet still guarded. "You have not only survived, but you have mastered what few in my tribe could," she said quietly, almost grudgingly. Her words carried the weight of acknowledgement, of respect earned through perseverance and skill. The elders nodded, confirming her assessment. The chamber quieted, the mechanism slowing. The test concluded. Ryan had not only passed the challenge, but had also demonstrated the essence of adaptability, observation, and courage. Kalira realized that the human was not merely an outsider. He was someone who could engage with her world on terms few expected. The tension between them shifted slightly, evolving from confrontation to a cautious mutual respect. The trial had been designed to test skill and trust, and Ryan had proven himself on both counts. The sun disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving the chamber in soft twilight. Ryan and Kalira stood side by side, the weight of what had been accomplished settling over them. He had survived a test that was meant to intimidate, confuse, and challenge, and he had emerged unbroken. Kalira's mind, once filled with certainty and expectation, now considered possibilities she had never imagined. Ryan had passed the fourth part of the trial, and the story of his endurance, courage, and intelligence was far from over. The tribe had seen something remarkable, and Kalira could not deny that she was intrigued by the human who had walked through fire and emerged stronger than anyone had anticipated. The morning sun poured through the high windows of the arena, casting golden streaks across the polished floor as Ryan prepared for the fifth part of the trial. The air was tense with expectation. Kalira stood nearby, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp and alert. The elders had gathered, their gazes fixed on the human who had already surpassed every challenge so far. This phase was different. It was not only about skill, strength, or balance. It was about instinct, intuition, and the ability to protect someone under extreme pressure. The first obstacle appeared immediately, a series of platforms suspended over a shallow pit, each moving independently, some faster than others. Above, heavy mechanical arms swung in irregular patterns, while ropes and chains swayed unpredictably. The goal was to reach the far side without touching the pit or being struck. Ryan assessed the situation quickly, calculating angles and timing. His previous experiences in the trials gave him an advantage. He knew he needed to stay light on his feet and trust his instincts. Kalira observed closely, noting the way his eyes scanned the environment, how his muscles tensed and relaxed in anticipation. Ryan stepped forward cautiously, testing the first platform with his weight. It tilted slightly, but he adjusted immediately, shifting his balance. A mechanical arm swung toward him, and he ducked just in time, the metal brushing past his shoulder. He moved steadily, one platform to the next, maintaining focus despite the chaos around him. Kalira's eyes flicked with a mixture of irritation and admiration. She had trained warriors her whole life. Yet here was a human navigating the complex system with confidence and precision. Halfway through, an unexpected trap triggered. Panels in the floor sank, creating gaps that seemed impossible to cross. Ryan's mind raced, but he didn't hesitate. He leapt from one platform to the next, using the momentum to swing across a chain and land safely. The elders murmured among themselves, impressed by his quick thinking. Kalira's lips pressed into a thin line. She did not want to admit it, but the human was proving he could handle the unpredictable with a calmness rare even among her own people. Next came the test of endurance. A swinging pendulum, tipped with a heavy metal sphere, moved rapidly across the chamber. Ryan had to time his steps perfectly to avoid being hit. He paused, watching its rhythm, then moved with precise timing, letting the pendulum pass just inches from him. His movements were a blend of instinct and careful calculation, a balance that Kalira had never expected from a human. She stepped closer, her gaze locked on him, trying to anticipate his next move, realizing she was witnessing something extraordinary. Then, the most dangerous part appeared. A series of energy barriers that flickered on and off randomly, creating deadly patterns that had to be memorized and navigated. Ryan's pulse quickened, but he didn't panic. He studied the patterns carefully, timing each step to coincide with the barrier's cycle. One wrong move could result in a painful shock, but he moved with confidence, trusting his observation and instincts. Kalira's eyes widened as she saw him slip through the barriers almost effortlessly. Even the most skilled warriors of her tribe struggled with this part, yet he moved with precision and courage. The final obstacle of this phase was a simulated attack by a holographic enemy designed to test combat instincts and reflexes. The figures lunged, swung weapons, and circled him, creating a whirlwind of danger. Ryan didn't hesitate. He used his mace, blocking, striking, and maneuvering with an unexpected fluidity. Every movement was calculated, every action intentional. Kalira's eyebrows lifted. She had underestimated not only his strength and agility, but his ability to think and act under pressure. The challenge required Ryan to protect Kalira from one final threat. A mechanical arm, heavier and faster than any before, aimed toward her. Without thinking, he rushed forward, placing himself between the danger and her. The arm struck his shielded stance, forcing him back, but he held firm, absorbing the impact and pushing the arm aside. Kalira froze, shocked. This human, whom she had expected to falter, was defending her without hesitation, without fear. She felt a rush of emotions she could not name, respect, confusion, and an odd sense of trust that unsettled her. Ryan continued, guiding Kalira safely through the remaining obstacles. Each step required coordination, each movement precise. He spoke little, only offering brief instructions or signals, but Kalira followed, amazed at how he seamlessly adapted to her movements and reactions. She had always believed that humans could not handle the complex trials of her people, yet here he was, proving her assumptions wrong at every turn. When they reached the final platform, Ryan stood tall, breathing heavily but steady. Kalira looked at him, a mixture of astonishment and reluctant admiration in her gaze. He had not only survived the fifth phase, but had excelled, demonstrating instinct, courage, and protective skill beyond what she had imagined possible. The elders nodded in agreement, acknowledging that this human was extraordinary in ways they had not foreseen. The energy in the chamber shifted as the trial concluded. Ryan had faced chaos, traps, and simulated combat, yet his mind remained clear, his actions deliberate and his instincts sharp. Kalira studied him silently, her usual defiance softened by the undeniable reality of his capabilities. For the first time, she realized that tradition and expectation had underestimated the potential of a human. As the sun rose higher, casting light across the chamber floor, Ryan and Kalira paused. The fifth part of the trial was complete, leaving a lingering sense of accomplishment and a subtle shift in the tribe's perception of him. He had proven that human courage, skill, and intuition could match, and even surpass, the expectations set by centuries of tradition. Kalira could no longer view him merely as an outsider. He had earned her respect and changed the narrative of what humans could achieve. Each observer in the gallery felt the weight of what they had witnessed. Ryan had passed a challenge meant to test instinct and courage, and in doing so had begun to redefine what was possible. Kalira's mind raced with new possibilities, considering how this human might perform in the final trials and beyond. The fifth part had not only tested his abilities, but also forged a subtle bond of trust and acknowledgement between them, signaling that the human was no longer merely a participant in their traditions. He was a force to be reckoned with, capable of reshaping the expectations of her entire people. The air in the arena was thick with tension as Ryan stepped forward for the sixth part of the trial. Kalira followed closely, her gaze sharp and calculating. The elders had designed this stage to test endurance, strategy, and the ability to act under extreme pressure while protecting others. This was the penultimate challenge, and the weight of expectation pressed heavily on Ryan. Every eye in the gallery was fixed on him, waiting to see if the human could maintain the extraordinary performance he had shown so far. The chamber was vast, circular, and filled with obstacles that seemed almost alive. Platforms rose and fell, swinging pendulums threatened with every misstep, and shifting walls forced constant adaptation. Ryan immediately noticed the patterns and timing of the mechanical elements. He moved cautiously, testing each step with his foot before committing his weight. Kalira watched his every move, her expression tight but intrigued. She had expected hesitation, maybe even failure, but Ryan moved with calm determination. The first part of the trial was deceptively simple. A series of narrow beams stretched across a pit, each swaying with the smallest touch. Ryan's instinct was to stay low and move slowly, but he realized hesitation could be worse than risk. He found a rhythm, matching his breathing to the sway of the beams, half letting instinct guide him. Halfway across, one beam tilted sharply. Ryan adjusted immediately, his foot slipping slightly, but he regained balance before disaster struck. Kalira's eyes widened. She had assumed humans were clumsy and weak, yet this one moved with grace and precision she had rarely seen. Next, a series of rotating platforms emerged, some spinning clockwise, others counterclockwise. Ryan timed his steps carefully, jumping from one to another, using momentum to his advantage. Each rotation threatened to throw him off, but he adapted instantly, his body moving as if it were part of the mechanism itself. Kalira followed his every move, noting how he read the rhythm of the environment and reacted almost instinctively. The elders whispered among themselves, impressed by the human's ability to master a challenge that had defeated even the most skilled warriors of the tribe. Suddenly, the chamber shifted. Sections of the floor sank, revealing traps hidden beneath. Ryan's heart raced, but his mind stayed clear. He analyzed each step, predicting where the next panel might drop and timing his jumps accordingly. The gaps were narrow, and failure would have been humiliating, or worse. He leapt across one pit, barely catching the edge of a platform, and swung his body upward to land safely. Kalira's lips pressed together, a flicker of admiration betraying her usual cool exterior. She had thought humans fragile, incapable of handling her people's trials. Ryan was proving her wrong in the most dramatic way. A sudden mechanical arm swung from the ceiling, aimed to strike anyone attempting to pass too quickly. Ryan reacted instantly, ducking and rolling under the path of the arm. The impact of near-miss adrenaline sharpened his senses, making his movements more precise, faster, and more deliberate. Kalira's thoughts raced. She had underestimated him. And now she had to consider the possibility that this human could truly handle anything she had to offer. Then came the most difficult part, a simulated assault. Holographic enemies appeared, armed and aggressive, moving unpredictably. The challenge was to disarm and evade without sustaining injury. Ryan's hand gripped his weapon tightly, eyes scanning the illusions. Each strike had to be calculated, each dodge perfectly timed. He moved fluidly, his body responding faster than thought. He parried, sidestepped, and countered, taking down each holographic threat with skill and precision. Kalira watched, her respect growing. Humans had surprised her before, but now she saw capability, courage, and instinct combined in a way she had never imagined. The final stage required teamwork. Kalira was the target, and Ryan had to ensure her safety while navigating the remaining obstacles. A series of swinging logs, moving platforms, and mechanical hazards created a gauntlet that demanded total focus. Ryan positioned himself between danger and Kalira, predicting every swing, every tilt, and every sudden movement. He guided her with brief gestures and careful timing, showing that he could not only survive but also protect another. Kalira's disbelief was evident. This human had gone from outsider to a protector, handling threats that would have overwhelmed most of her warriors. Halfway through the gauntlet, a massive pendulum swung toward Kalira. Ryan's reflexes were immediate. He pushed her out of the way and took the brunt of the impact on his shoulder, stumbling but regaining balance in a single fluid motion. Kalira's eyes widened. She had never seen such instinct, such courage, and such dedication. The elders murmured, clearly impressed by the human's ability to act decisively under pressure, even when protecting someone else. The last challenge was a collapsing platform over a shallow pit filled with spinning blades. Ryan's footwork had to be perfect. He tested each section before stepping, timing his movements to avoid the spinning blades. Kalira followed, moving as he signaled, her trust in him growing with every step. The blades spun dangerously close, creating a tense rhythm that required absolute precision. Ryan moved steadily, calmly, and finally reached the edge, securing Kalira's safety as they stepped onto solid ground. The chamber fell silent. Ryan's chest heaved with exertion, sweat soaking his clothes, but his eyes remained focused and steady. Kalira studied him, her usual skepticism giving way to undeniable respect. He had not only passed the 6th phase, but had done so with a combination of skill, courage, and intelligence that few of her warriors could match. The elders nodded in silent approval, recognizing that the human had exceeded expectations once again. For Kalira, the trial had changed something. The human was no longer simply a participant. He had demonstrated instinct, strategy, and protective skill beyond what she had imagined possible. She could not deny the impact of his actions, his ability to adapt, survive, and safeguard others under extreme conditions. Ryan and Kalira paused at the end of the chamber, both breathing heavily, the weight of the completed trial settling on them. The penultimate challenge had tested endurance, courage, and the ability to act decisively under extreme pressure. Ryan had excelled in every aspect, proving that human determination, instinct, and skill could match and surpass the expectations of her people. The bond between them had shifted subtly. Kalira's respect had grown, and the elders recognized a new level of capability in a human they had once underestimated. The 6th phase had tested more than physical skill. It had tested instinct, courage, and the ability to protect another. Ryan had succeeded, leaving no doubt that he was extraordinary, capable of handling challenges that even the most skilled warriors of the tribe would struggle with. The arena echoed with the unspoken acknowledgement that the human had proven himself yet again, and Kalira's mind buzzed with new possibilities for what he might achieve in the final part of the trial. The arena was silent, except for the soft hum of energy flowing through the final chamber. Ryan stood at the threshold, muscles tense, eyes sharp, ready for the seventh and last part of the trial. Kalira remained beside him, her posture rigid, but her attention fixed entirely on him. The elders had designed this ultimate challenge not just to test strength, agility, or intellect, but to measure courage, heart, and the bond between protector and protected. The entire tribe watched in anticipation, knowing this stage would decide whether the human had truly earned his place in their traditions. As Ryan stepped forward, the floor beneath him shifted. Platforms rose and fell, some tilted at impossible angles. Above, mechanical arms moved in unpredictable patterns, swinging like pendulums ready to strike. Ryan's instincts kicked in immediately. He measured distances, noted timing, and adjusted his steps carefully. Every move had to be precise. One mistake could send him falling into the abyss or trigger traps hidden in the floor. Kalira followed closely, her eyes darting between him and the moving obstacles. She could feel the tension in his body, the careful control in his movements, and, despite herself, she began to trust that he would handle the impossible. The first major obstacle appeared, a wide pit with rotating platforms covered in spikes. They spun unpredictably, and some tilted under weight. Ryan paused a moment, analyzing the patterns, then leapt onto the first platform. It spun sharply, forcing him to adjust his balance. Kalira gasped as he slid slightly but recovered, landing firmly on the next platform. His focus was unshakable. Each step was deliberate, his senses alive to every motion. The elders exchanged surprised glances, acknowledging the human's uncanny ability to read and adapt to the shifting dangers. Halfway across the pit, an unexpected mechanism activated. Mechanical arms shot out, aiming to strike anyone attempting to pass. Ryan didn't hesitate. He timed the swing of each arm perfectly, ducking and rolling under some, sidestepping others, moving with a speed and precision that left the audience breathless. Kalira's eyes widened, astonished at how naturally he reacted to threats she would have expected even elite warriors to struggle with. After passing the pit, Ryan reached a narrow bridge suspended over a deep chasm. The bridge was thin, slick, and swayed with the faintest touch. Kalira followed cautiously, trusting his guidance. Halfway across, a section of the bridge collapsed under her weight. Ryan reacted instantly, extending a hand to steady her, gripping tightly as she regained her balance. She blinked in surprise, realizing that he had not only mastered the physical challenges, but also instinctively protected her from danger. This realization unsettled her. She had assumed humans were fragile, weak, incapable of handling her people's trials. He had proven her assumptions wrong again. Next came a gauntlet of holographic enemies. They appeared suddenly, armed and aggressive, circling both Ryan and Kalira. The objective was to move past them without taking a hit, requiring sharp reflexes and precise timing. Ryan's body moved as if anticipating the enemy's actions before they happened. He ducked, rolled, and sidestepped with an instinctive rhythm. Kalira's respect deepened as she noticed how he anticipated threats, protected her from potential hits, and moved fluidly through chaos. The holograms were relentless, yet Ryan's calm, strategic actions allowed both of them to navigate safely. Then came the most critical test, a massive swinging mace, heavier and faster than anything they had faced before, targeted toward Kalira. Ryan didn't hesitate. He positioned himself between the threat and her, bracing his body to absorb the impact. The mace struck with tremendous force, sending him stumbling but not down. He regained his stance, adjusting instantly, ensuring Kalira's safety. She felt a mix of awe and confusion. This human, whom she had doubted countless times, was now risking everything for her, moving with courage and instinct beyond what she thought possible. The chamber shifted again, revealing an intricate maze of platforms, each with potential traps. Ryan analyzed the layout quickly, plotting a path that minimized risk while maximizing efficiency. Kalira followed his signals, moving precisely with him. They leapt over gaps, slid under swinging barriers, and avoided collapsing floors. The final trial demanded absolute coordination, trust, and timing, and Ryan handled it flawlessly. His every movement reflected intelligence, experience, and an unspoken sense of duty. Kalira's skepticism was gone. In its place grew admiration and a new, unanticipated bond. At the center of the chamber, the ultimate test appeared, a pedestal holding a ceremonial object, the symbol of tradition and victory. To claim it, Ryan had to lift and balance a massive weight while simultaneously avoiding mechanical attacks from all sides. He gritted his teeth, gripping the heavy object with both hands. The moment he lifted it, alarms sounded, and the arena sprang to life with mechanical hazards designed to challenge every skill he had demonstrated so far. Platforms tilted, spikes emerged, and swinging arms threatened from every angle. Ryan's muscles burned, sweat poured down his face, but he maintained control. Kalira followed, her own body tense, realizing that his strength, focus, and instinct combined in perfect harmony to meet the impossible challenge. Step by step, he navigated the threats, protecting both himself and Kalira. He adjusted to every unexpected swing, every sudden shift in the floor, every trap with calm precision. The audience, once skeptical, now watched in awe, whispering to each other about the human's extraordinary abilities. Kalira's eyes reflected a mixture of shock, admiration, and a strange warmth she did not expect to feel. Ryan was no longer simply a participant. He had become a protector, a warrior, and a force capable of redefining the tribe's expectations. Finally, he reached the edge of the chamber. The weight still in his hands, Ryan stepped onto the final platform. The room fell silent as he placed the ceremonial object down with perfect balance. The challenge was complete. Kalira looked at him, breathing heavily, her eyes wide with disbelief and admiration. The human had not only survived the ultimate trial, but had excelled, proving courage, skill, instinct, and unwavering commitment. The elders rose in unison, nodding in approval. Ryan had passed a trial that tested everything: strength, intelligence, agility, endurance, and heart. Kalira studied him, realizing that every doubt she had once held about humans had been shattered. He had proven himself beyond measure, earning respect not only from her, but from the entire tribe. For the first time, tradition had met something it could not easily judge, and it had yielded to his extraordinary abilities. The final part of the trial had tested body, mind, and spirit, and Ryan had passed them all. His courage, quick thinking, and instinct had not only ensured his survival, but had also protected Kalira, forging a bond that neither had expected, but both acknowledged. The arena buzzed with awe and respect, and Kalira's heart recognized that this human had changed everything, not only for himself, but for her, for the elders, and for the traditions they all held dear.